Okay, so I just did that lecture, the online lecture. Went well, I thought. Good to see a good number, but quite a lot missing still, of you there. But do you know what? The record screen, I did record screen, I selected Keynote, and as a result, every time I came out of Keynote to show you the software, it didn't record it, and that hurts. Hurts really, really bad. So I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to record this again. The advantage of me recording it again is now we've got the nice camera, so fingers crossed, exposure's good, autofocus, so all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record that again, probably be a bit quicker, and having been through it once, hopefully the jokes will be better. So let's just do this. So pixel-based imaging, it's about the software landscape. It's about you being aware of the things that are going on in software. And in particular, what I'm doing today is I'm focusing on pixel-based imaging. So we're looking at Photoshop. So it's really, we're looking at alternatives, competitors, supplements to Photoshop with some added little bits at the end that hopefully will make sense to you. Okay, so let's go on. So first thing to note is that there are different ways that you can buy software. The first way is just a one-time purchase. So you might have a piece of software that you just pay up front for, and that used to be the way that Adobe sold their software. So for instance, if you wanted to get Photoshop, you'd pay £600, and that would, you'd have a thing that would last forever, but you could only ever update it within the same. So if it was Photoshop 4, by the time you got to Photoshop 5, there would be an upgrade cost, and that upgrade cost used to be about £300. Or you could leave it on the £600 version, but then you would lose out on the new features and the updates. So that was the way that people used to do it, and obviously for students that was quite a big cost. And despite the fact there was a reduced cost for students, it was still very high. And you'd have to buy Photoshop. You could buy what was called the Master Collection, which for everybody else was thousands of pounds, and for students was about £800, plus then the updates each year. So it was quite an expensive thing. So they changed their model to a subscription model where you would pay in effect to rent it. And really, this came out of people with phones where you could buy services. And extra features, that in-app purchase, and it was the way that things started to move, and Adobe very keen on that. Obviously the cost comes down to a much more reasonable cost, so for students it's about £16 a month, for professionals it was about £50 a month, but that was for the whole thing. That was for the whole thing. Obviously, if you multiply it by 12 and get the overall figure, that adds up quite a lot. But suddenly, not having to shell out £600 in one go became a real option. Stop down one. That's better. So that rental is the way that they moved, and obviously it stopped a lot of piracy as well, which would happen with the. When you were doing one-off purchases, it became a lot more attractive to pirate it. Whereas when it's much more reasonable, it became much less likely for that to happen. And then the third way is open source software that's free. Now, by free, I don't mean free as in zero cost, although in actual fact, on the whole, open source software is free, but it's free as in freedom. So people could do what they wanted with it. They could update it themselves. So open source software, and open source is a very key thing, developed really by somebody called Richard Stallman, and we'll come to him later. The elephant in the room is that Photoshop is far and away the leader in the market. You'll find Photoshop in design agencies you won't find some of this other software in design agencies. It's way market dominance. Okay. So the one to learn is Photoshop for design. However, there are some competitors. Let's have a quick look. So Corel Draw, for instance. Let's have a quick look at Corel Draw. So this is Corel Draw. You can see it's £600, including VAT. There is a subscription model, which is £25 a month, or you can just pay £299 for a year. But this is the main way to get CorelDRAW is you buy it outright. And there's two bits. There's CorelDRAW, and there's also Corel Paint. And on the whole, it's a very similar piece of software. The Photo Paint to Photoshop, and CorelDRAW is very similar to Illustrator. But I've actually got the demo on here, so let me just open it up. Corel Photo Paint. Let's just launch this. Okay, so this is Corel Paint, and I'll just open an image. So this is that image in Corel Paint. And just, I'm interested in the similarities between this and Photoshop. So for instance, on the right hand side, you've got a layers palette, and if you dragged in another image, you can just drag it in and you end up with a similar thing, a setup of layers. Let's just put my mouse over this. Interesting, you don't get tooltips, but what you do get is you get plus. What does plus give you? Plus gives you another layer, a new lens, an add effect, create a mask. Okay, so if we go to here and we said create a mask, let's just see what that does. Here's the mask, so let's just try painting on it. So let's see if we can grab a brush. So here is a brush, and we're going to paint with, yeah, so this is doing exactly what I would expect. Let's make it a bit bigger. So I can paint out and it reveals the thing underneath, so that you can see this is literally the mask. And I'm guessing that if you hold down Alt, it doesn't. Okay, let's just try it. Let's just see if we can actually see. Yeah, I can't work out how to see the mask on its own. But apart from this, very similar to Photoshop. And you can play with the brush, and it looks like this is hard and soft. Where's hard and soft? I'm just trying to see where about here. Feather, I guess. So if we take it all the way down to 0, I'm guessing that we'll end up with a harder edge. Yes, we are. And the more you increase this, let's do 500. Looks like you can't. Yeah, so you can get a soft edge to it. But this is masks. Let's just get rid of that. So let's just see bin. So you can see very, very similar. So let's have a look and see if there's a select. Looks like there isn't a similar thing to select subject, but nonetheless, in some ways very similar. You can even see that the swapping the colors around is the same. Looks like if we pick a color and you can swap, yeah, okay, so and you can paint, and it's got the text tool. So there's the text, select all. Looks like up here we can change the size. Very, very similar to Photoshop. Okay, so we're not going to look at CorelDRAW. That's the Illustrator bit, and we haven't done that bit yet. Soft hard, I'm not sure what that does, but either way, you get the idea. There's lots. It's very similar functionality. So let's just head back to the keynote. Next one is Affinity Photo. So let's just go to Affinity this time. So this is the company that makes it. They used to be called Serif, and they used to make some software. I seem to remember Serif Page Plus, I believe it was called, and it was sort of cut down, wasn't very good. But here they've launched this Affinity brand, and they've gone full out and are really trying to make Photoshop alternative. They also do Affinity Designer, which is their Illustrator competitor. They do Affinity Publisher, which is their InDesign competitor. And if you just have a look at the store, so you can see the prices. So let's do Affinity Photo Buy Now. It's $48.99, one-off cost. No subscription, that's it. Okay, so really interesting piece of software. I do actually have it here, so let's just go Affinity Photo. I bought it a while back, haven't done much with it, so I can't guarantee that I can really show you exactly how to use it, but I'm more interested in the similarities. Okay, so here it is. Let's just scroll down and let's just say we want it to be 1920 1080. Yeah, create. So here's my blank document. Let's just drag in an image. Oh yeah, let's drag this one in. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom out, which I'm guessing is Command minus, which it doesn't look like it is, but let's just zoom out. Let's see if I can zoom out. There it is, yeah, okay. So again, here's the layer, and if we click on it, you'll probably see the handles, which we can drag in so it fits on the screen. Here's me in my studio, not where I am now. Okay, and I guess, yes, there we go. Now, if we just drag another image, you can see that it drops it on top. Okay, so very similar to Photoshop, and you can see the layers, and up here you've got options for opacity. So we can change the opacity of it. You can change the blending mode. Get the previews like you do in Photoshop now. Okay, lots of options in the brushes. You've got lots of. This is actually the magic brush, the selection brush, which is interesting. Command D for deselect. I'm just going to hide that layer there if I can. Let me just see if I can hide it. I don't know how to hide it. I don't know how to hide it, so maybe it's the tick. There we go, that's hiding it. So we're going to work on this layer here, and we're just going to see if I can select myself. So I'm just using the brush to brush over it, and a bit of my fingers. Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, so if we just make a mask with that, there we go. So again, not bad. Not as quite as good as the auto bit of Photoshop, but you can see the way it works, and there's a mask attached to it. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can just alt click, same as Photoshop, to see the mask. So I can edit it in much the same way. So a very, very powerful piece of software. Crop tool, paint brushes, there's a warp tool. Let's just see if I can get the warp to work. Yeah, so you can see this is warping it. Okay, so you get the idea, and I guess when you click off, I guess there's a validate it somewhere. There's probably a tick box or something. Let's just go to another tool, maybe. Yeah, just go to another tool, validates it. Okay, so that's the Affinity Photo. GIMP is a funny one. GIMP is GNU Image Manipulation Program. So what does GNU mean? Well, GNU means GNU's not Unix. So Unix is a programming language. This was very much, GNU comes from Richard Stallman, who's the man that was talking about open source before. So this is an open source piece of software. But it's called GIMP. Let's just have a quick look. Very powerful, been around a long time. A bit geeky. You used to have to install a whole lot of extra stuff on the Mac in order to get it to run, called X11, but you no longer need to do that. Let's just open it up and have a look. So this is GIMP. Now it's available on Mac, PC, Linux, lots of options. As a result, I think it's a little bit ugly. It's a little bit trying to do everything. They've tried to make it modern, but I feel that these icons feels a bit clunky to me. But let's just open up some images. Let's just find an image to upload. There's me. Yeah, let's see if I can get that one in. So, would you like to rotate the image? Yes, I would. Convert. Okay, so there it is. There's me out on my bike ride at night. Let's just see what free select tool. So the free select is like the lasso in Photoshop. back to the thing. Let's try Command D to deselect it. It doesn't work, so let's just, there we go, I just used another tool. Let's just see what other options we've got to select me with. So down here you've got new layer group, move it up and down, a duplicate of the layer, anchor the layer, add a mask. Okay, so let's just add a mask. Let's say full opacity, add, and let's just get the paintbrush, which is here. See if we can work out how to make it go, the paintbrush paint with black, because I don't really want to paint with the, yes, let's just do for this. And let's just see if I can make it, yeah, there we go. So I can paint around. Very powerful, just not as slick and as polished as either Affinity Photo or Photoshop, but you get the idea. And this is just a mask, so I can probably disable layer mask. Yeah, so I can bring it back again. Okay, so I can work on its non-destructive. So cool bit of software, but a little bit clunky, works a little bit differently to the other software that we've used. It's not going down the Photoshop route in quite the same way, but it's completely free. Okay, so we've got all this other stuff. Look, you can oilify. Let's just see what it's going to do. That's going to do. Perhaps we need to work on that layer instead. Let's just try artistic, oilify. Preset. Let's just see. Oilify, it's happening. Yeah, not sure what it's done, to be honest. So let's just cancel that and let's move on to the next bit of software. So that's GIMP. Luminar. Now, Luminar, interesting piece of software. It's caused a lot of fuss just recently because people don't like some of the things that it's doing. But there's two versions of it. There's Luminar 4 and then Luminar AI, which is what's been happening recently. So let's just have a look at Luminar 4 to start with. So learn more about it. And let's just watch the video. Here, if we have a look, it's got slim face, enlarge eyes, eyebrow improve, lips saturation, lips redness. So in some ways it's like the sort of Instagram filters but on steroids, so it's a lot more taking it onto a desktop level. Then Luminar AI. So it's actually automating things using artificial intelligence. It's augmenting things in a very sort of mannered way, and lots of people have taken objected to this because it's It's like the arguments people make about Instagram filters, about slimming people down and making people unreal, smoothing out skin, but applying it to every image and doing it without our intervention. It's just using AI to think that it would be better like this. So it's starting to beg the question about how much we trust things. So that's the reason people are a little bit worried about it. But nonetheless, interesting piece of software. And let's just have a quick look. It's pre-order at a special price. So we don't want that one. We just want... Okay, so 54. It's 54 pounds for a year. So again, it's annually, done annually. Let's just check that I've got that right. If we go to Luminar 4, which I think is... you can just buy outright. Let me just check. Luminar 4. Buy now. $56. So in actual, sorry, 54 again. So it's very similar. Okay. So it's not much difference in the price, but no subscription, buy once, use forever. So it looks like they're offering some kind of online thing for the AI bit on top of a base cost. But you can see it's one-off compared to Photoshop. Pricing is cheap. Let's just head back to the presentation. Krita, let's just go straight to it. So Krita is open source, free, zero cost. It does an awful lot that Photoshop does, but is perhaps more focused on concept art and illustration. So let's just have a look at it. Why is that not loaded? Here we go. So this is Krita. Let's just drag in an image. Let's just say we want... let's get this man in. We've been keep showing him. He's a bit low res though, so perhaps we won't. Perhaps we'll bring this one back in again. So here's this. Now, what you'll notice is that it's very oriented straight away up front brushes. Lots of brush presets. So let's just do some painting with some brushes. Okay, and let's just try one of these bigger ones. Now, with a graphics tablet, it will respond rather differently. We've got an eraser, so you can rub stuff out. Let's just get one of, here we go, more of a bristle sort of brush. And you can see it's moving around with me. It's not just a static brush. And so it's very much aimed at illustration. So that's what this really is. And up here you can see you've got a lot of the Gaussian blur, edge detection, artistic. Let's try it. Here we go, pixelize. Let's make them bigger so you can do sort of pixel art with it if that's what you wanted to do. Okay, so you can start making pixel art. It's just applied it to that layer and then we can paint back onto it. So it's a bit like Photoshop. We've still got layers, we've got masks, we've got options for blending modes, we've got all sorts of different things. But it's open source and it's particularly good with graphics tablets. All right, we're on to some online things now. Now, Canva is aimed at people that perhaps are less comfortable developing ideas themselves. So I wouldn't recommend this as a good solution for graphic designers. But for instance, in advertising, they use this quite a lot because they're not creative people in the same sense. But let's just do templates. Let's pick out an invitation. And let's just say we want this one. So we're going to use this template as a starting point. Then what you can do is you can click on the background and let's just say animate. Interesting. I didn't realize there was animation within this, but let's just let's just change color. Let's go for this and say, well, we don't want that there. We want it a bit bigger and you should be able to rotate it, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Let's rotate it around a bit. So you can get it doing exactly what you want. You can change this to say Mark. And I'm guessing if we do select all and you go to text, let's change it to a different layout. We didn't want that. Let's undo. I just want to change the text. Let's just see if we can do that. Here we go, Bobby Jones soft. You've got all these. Let's change it to Pedoni. Okay, this illustration here, let's just see, it looks like it's a candle. So I think if we go to photos, you've got some options that you can just drop in and replace. Hopefully you can replace. Just delete that. I'm not sure if you can actually replace that, because that might be a vector, so there's different ways. But you can see it's much more template driven. There is some richness with some of the things you can do, but it's not as creative as the other options we've been looking at. Another option is similar to Canva, although I think slightly better, is Pixlr, and this really is Photoshop but online. So you can see what I've been doing. Let's just go to find a picture of that picture again. So let's just say open image, drop to open file. We'll say for this one, we'll say OK. And I guess that we can rotate it somewhere. Let me just see. Interesting. This one is just trying to see if I can rotate it. Looks like this version is a bit more limited, so I'm just going to, that was Pixlr X. Let's do Pixlr, or is it Pixlr E that I need? Let's just go back a second. Here we go. I think this is the one. So we'll go to here. Yeah, so this has got a lot more tools. Look, a lot richer. This is very similar to Photoshop, and it's also got actual a menu within it. So here we go, rotate left. We just need to unlock the background layer by the looks of it. There we go. And then we can say image, rotation, rotate left. There we go. And let's just move me up. And let's see if we can cut out my head. So let's just use the magic wand. Great. And we'll see if there's a mask. Is there a mask somewhere? Select. Here we go. Convert to mask. All right, so we've made it into a mask. So then I'm guessing that we can use magic wand and delete. Yeah, so we can, I've got too much, but can D to deselect. Along here, this one is liquefy. So let's just zoom in a bit. So I'm just using, again, keyboard shortcuts from Photoshop. Looks like I can just make my eye sort of animate, give myself a sort of anime eyes. Again, this is the same as the liquefy filter in Photoshop. Okay, looking good. Let's give myself some Spock ears. There we go. Elf ears. There we go. Okay, so you get the idea. And then what you can do is you can go File, Save, and you can download it. Again, in terms of Photoshop, very similar. Layers, Tools. Look, hue and saturation. Okay, so lots of the stuff that we've been doing. And this is online. Now let's just quickly head back to see pricing. There is a free one. There's one which would be £60 a year, $60 a year, and another one. And what these give you is they give you extra AI bits, some more tools, and some extra sort of stickers and stuff like that. Okay, so it's an interesting piece of software. Head back to here. Now Lightroom is also made by Adobe. The difference between Lightroom and Photoshop is Lightroom is a much more likely to deal with large numbers of photos and give overall things, whereas overall adjustments, whereas Photoshop is more likely to be used for individual bits, more likely to be used for painting, better support for brushes, trimming things out than Lightroom. Lightroom is a good photo developer, if you like. There's pieces of software like Pixelmator, Mac only. You can see lots of these. They're about £30 each. Very powerful, been around a while, but they are Mac only. But if you only ever use, if you're only ever going to do a little bit of photo editing, things like this, £30 one-off payment might be quite a good deal. There's another one I'd recommend you just have a look at called Acorn. And again, look, $29. It's got curves, it's got tools you're familiar with. You'll pick it up really, really quickly. But bearing in mind you've got Photoshop Creative Cloud through the university for free, there's no reason for these, but you should be aware of them. Now, let's just move online to mobile apps. Increasingly, iPads are becoming important for designers, both in terms of illustration and the apps are becoming much more powerful now. On the iPad, far and away the one you want to look at is Procreate. And those of you with it, very good for drawing. It will do, and painting. It will do some sort of more traditional Photoshop type graphic stuff as well. But it's a brilliant painting app, layering things up. Works really well with the pencil. Powerful bit of software. If we just head back to Adobe, all the Adobe apps are increasingly becoming available on iPads as well. So for instance, if you look at the Creative Cloud page, which is this one, this banner, which is just showing the sorts of things that are available, as soon as this starts playing, you'll start to spot bits of mobile apps coming in. So here's a mobile app, there's mobile Photoshop, and again, some use of the mobile app here and there. So increasingly, Adobe are making their software available for iPad as well. So Photoshop is available for iPad. It's not completely fully featured, but it's getting more and more powerful each iteration. They have a beta version of Illustrator, and they'll be launching Illustrator as a fully fledged app soon as well. They've got some crude-ish video editing software, but increasingly Adobe are moving into the mobile area too. So as we move forward, it may well be that you find that mobile tablets, iPads are increasingly becoming, if not a full replacement, then at least a great complement to working online. So that's mobile apps. But the reality is that if we just head back to here, and we just press play and move on. Really, you have to be learning Photoshop. The only thing that you're really going to come up against is Photoshop, but it's really good to be aware of those others. They've all got different strengths, and you may well want to switch to them every now and again for different things. But be aware of them, but Photoshop is definitely the market leader by a long way. And then that's it for this presentation. So we'll do similar things each week, and hope that helps and wasn't too boring. Okay, that's it. See you next week, or see you Thursday, in fact. Cheers, bye.